Personnel Committee meeting to order. Can we have the roll call?
Yes. Today is May 22nd, 10 a.m. Janelle Powers.
Here.
Sherry Ames. Here. Mary Jo Fessmeyer is absent. Joel Hoyland.
Here.
Cindy Yeager.
Here. Mary Jo was unfortunately unable to attend because she's substitute teaching today. Agenda item 1, discussion and action involving City of Lake Geneva Government Manual Policy 101, Section 101.10, grievances referred to and under authority of the Personnel Committee. Specifically, grievance 26-01, and censure of Alderperson Hoyland. Consideration and action on Resolution 26-RP1, a resolution censuring Alderperson Joel Hoyland. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution of the censuring Alderperson Joel Hoyland.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
Yes.
Alderperson Hoyland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On May 6th, I objected to holding this committee meeting the day before a holiday weekend and at 10 a.m. when people who are working are unable to attend. Obviously, there are a number of people here who either took time off from work or are retired, and I appreciate you being here. Alder Fesselmeyer did indicate even then that she could not be here, but the meeting was nevertheless scheduled as such. In addition, the late packet and confirmation of this meeting have made it impossible to prepare for my defense. I'm in a process of retaining legal counsel and need time to fully address the censorship action, particularly the resolution. Specifically, there are procedure and authority concerns, objection to personnel file treatment, selective enforcement and fairness, political weaponization concerns, and reservation of rights. On May 8th, I formally objected to the May 4th action taken by the Personnel Committee to censure me, and I submitted a letter of objection, which I'm going to read at this point in full. I'm writing to formally object to the recent action taken by the Personnel Committee to censure me. I unequivocally disagree with the findings and conclusions that form the basis of this action. The record does not support the characterization of my conduct as a violation warranting formal censure, nor does it demonstrate any meaningful misuse of city resources, disruption of operations, or harm to the public. I further object on the basis that the procedural authority for this action is unclear and appears inconsistent with governing ordinance structure. The Municipal Policy Manual is primarily focused on employee-related matters. I'm an elected official, not an employee. The reliance on internal policy language to support disciplinary action, particularly where such policy extends beyond the scope of a city ordinance or Wisconsin statute, raises serious concerns regarding jurisdiction, due process, and proper authority. Additionally, the role of city administrator in initiating and advancing this grievance exceeds the ministerial function described in the city's policy framework, which contemplates forwarding complaints rather than originating and prosecuting them. I formally object to the creation or placement of any censure documentation within this so-called personnel file. As an elected official, I do not serve as an employee of the city. The application of employee-based disciplinary actions of an elected office holder is inappropriate and unsupported by ordinance. This action creates confusion regarding roles, authority, and governance structure. Equally concerning is the selective enforcement of standards. Comparable or more serious concerns involving other elected officials have not been addressed with similar urgency or consequence. This inconsistency undermines confidence in the fairness and integrity of the process and creates the appearance that this action is politically motivated rather than objectively applied. Taken together, the process, timing, and uneven application of standards raise legitimate concerns that this action represents a form of political weaponization of administrative procedures rather than a neutral and objective application of governance policy. This is not a precedent that serves the long-term interests of the city or its residents. I am formally preserving all objections to this action, reserving all legal rights and remedies available to me under applicable law. Nothing in this correspondence should be construed as a waiver of those rights. I remain committed to serving the residents of Lake Geneva with professionalism, diligence, and integrity. I will continue to focus on advancing sound governance, fiscal responsibility, and transparency for the benefit of the community.
Amen.
In addition,
Same old school board here.
Alder Ames' complaint was dismissed despite conclusive video evidence, especially a false police report. The conclusive evidence was ignored and standards differed drastically. Many false statements were also made, not only during the video of the police cams, that is evidenced and publicly disclosed, but she made comments at the May 4th meeting indicating that we had dismissed charges against each other. That is a false statement. I did not dismiss my charges against Alder Ames. In the video, the third video in which she was at her doorstep, she made a comment that we hate each other. I have never made that statement. She has a sign in her front yard, or at least she did, hate has no place here. That is not a joke. That is a statement of fact. She also went on to say, and I repeat, he is a cocky son of a bitch.
Nice.
If that isn't an unethical statement, I don't know what is. She went on even further to advise the police officer, you better watch out. I'm paraphrasing now. You better watch out. If he gets elected mayor, you guys are going to be in trouble. Well, is that a threat to a police officer? I don't know if it is. I'm just saying that was a statement that was very inappropriate, unethical, perhaps. I reviewed Mr. DeAngelis' the ordinance language for city administrator and also his job description. There is nothing in his in the ordinance or in his job description gives him the authority to initiate a grievance against an elected official. Committee members, do you believe you can be objective in evaluating the facts brought forward and make decisions that can be justified and supported? That's a rhetorical question. Even if you are a respondent in a complaint. If not, will you recuse yourself from voting? Because you should. This is not a due process. This is a political entity of the city government. And you people are politicians. And it is evident that 2 out of the 4 of us here, well, 3 out of the 4 of us here have complaints against us. I'd be happy to recuse myself from voting against, or voting on my measure, but will you recuse yourself from voting on yours? If you will, great. If not, then we may have a problem. Madam Chair, I'm reviewing this. Did you initially decline the offer to serve as chair of the Personnel Committee? Did you explain to the mayor when he spoke with you about taking this position that you have very little personnel experience? That's a rhetorical question, because that's a conversation we had. So having said all of this, I find that there are some very troubling facts that have been stated here. I urge everyone here to be respectful and courteous and diplomatic, but at the same time, I think I've presented unrefutable evidence that an injustice has been done here. So, as a member of this committee, and since I doubt that my colleagues would recuse themselves, I move to dismiss all of the items or dismiss agenda item number 3. And I ask for a second.
I second.
I
second.
Do we have a second? Hearing none.
Point of order.
Then
According to
I,
Robert's Rules of Order, in a small committee such as this, a second is not required. Do you have a smartphone? If you don't believe me, Google it.
thank you.
Why go by the rules now?
May we have a judgment or a ruling from the special counsel?
Do a vote. It's that simple.
Okay, so is a second required?
Do a vote. Do a vote. We're not gonna waste time on this.
Why don't we waste time doing a vote with the
Okay,
people
please,
and not the board?
Please,
Because
please,
the council
let's-
has charged this committee with the responsibility of addressing this. So we can simply do a quick vote. It died for a second. Go ahead and you do the vote.
All those in favor?
so restate the motion, please.
Your motion was to, would you restate his entire motion?
Alder Hoyland moved to dismiss.
Number 3. yes.
Number 3 on the agenda. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
Of course. Such rage.
Okay, I also then move to continue. And based on the fact that the material in the packet was only released on, when was it, Thursday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon? I can't remember. It was very short, Wednesday afternoon, I believe, at about 3:31 on the timestamp. I didn't get it until about 5 o'clock. That gave me very little time to prepare for this, also to seek legal counsel and to advise sub-counsel on how to proceed. So I am seeking a continuation of this agenda item number 3.
When would you like to continue to?
Well, I would say no later than July 1st, 2026.
Is this in the form of a motion? Then do we have a second? Hearing no second, we will take a vote then. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No. The motion fails.
Democracy.
Do you have anything further?
I do not.
Thank you so much for your comments, Alderperson.
Yeah.
Then there is a motion on the floor to approve. Do you want further discussion? Is there further discussion?
Yes.
Alderperson Ames.
Well, Chairman, if the audience gets disruptive, can we have them? Because they're disrupting
Put us on, Chair.
our hearing?
This liberal way.
Respect is mutual. This is a meeting, it's not a hearing, first
Okay.
off. If the chairperson obviously identifies that the crowd is disorderly, certainly gaveling the crowd seems to have worked in the past where the crowd has become respectful. If you do have folks that are becoming much more than that, then law enforcement can be contacted, and that can be addressed with them before any sort of decisions are made at the hearing.
Okay. So, first of all, Alderman Hoyland claims that we did not drop this between each other. I have had a conversation with the chief and the lieutenant, and they read it over again, and we agreed to drop this. Second, I haven't had a hate has no home here in front of my house in probably 6 years. Excuse me.
One line after another.
Do you have pictures of it recently? Mine fell apart about 6 years ago. It was before COVID.
Now it don't apply?
Second of all, Todd asked me if I would be the chairman first. And we discussed it, and we thought it'd be best that I didn't do it. You know, Alderman Hoyland is trying to bring up the stuff against me today, even though I was found not guilty. I would like to state that in the resolution, number 5, it says, concerns have been raised regarding the conduct of Alderperson Hoyland as identified in the letter dated February 26, 2026 from the city administrator, David DeAngelis, to Alderman Hoyland, then chairperson of Personnel Committee. A copy was attached and marked as Exhibit A. This did not come from the council. We did not know about this for about 2 weeks after this was done. Section 3, nature of action. This resolution constitutes a formal expression of the Personnel Committee's opinion and its authority granted to by the Common Council under Section 101.10, and it's not intended to remove Alderperson Hoyland from elected office, limited Alderperson Hoyland's rights to vote, attend meetings, or otherwise perform the duties of his office, impose discipline beyond the authorized law. Never have we said in any of this that we were going to remove him today. I read it, that, and we cannot remove him. Is that correct?
What are you raising this money for then?
This is not a Chapter 17 removal proceeding which would be conducted by a city council. This is a legislative process where a legislative body is addressing its own members. This is the council under Section 62.11 of the statutes directing its authority to determine the qualifications of its membership, the capabilities of its membership, to enforce its own standards. The council adopted Section 101 of the policy manual to set forth standards of conduct for alderpersons, for which the council directed the Personnel Committee to serve essentially as the body to receive grievances and to address those grievances with the authority to take action, which is a legislative action up to and including censure. It's not an evidentiary hearing. It is not a Chapter 17.16 due process hearing. It is not a quasi-judicial proceeding. It is not the committee serving as an evidentiary body, taking evidence from a charging party and from a responding party. This is a legislative process. Does that answer the question? The city has already been through removal proceedings long ago, which are filed by charges filed with a governmental body. This is not that proceeding.
Is there further discussion? No. Then we will take a vote.
You want me to just read it? So the main motion was to approve Resolution 26-RP1, the censure of Alderperson Hoyland.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, no.
No.
The motion carries. Agenda item number 4. Discussion, action involving City of Lake Geneva Government Manual Policy 101, Section 101.10. Grievances referred to and under authority of the Personnel Committee, specifically grievances A 26-03. Is there a motion?
Madam, I have a motion to completely delete Chapter 1 of the Municipal Policy Manual. It has no bearing on, and it has no effect on anything that happens within this city council. And as such, it should be eliminated because it is unenforceable, it has no effect, and in fact, the responsibility of the Personnel Committee, as stated in the ordinance, indicates that the Personnel Committee only deals with employee issues. It does not deal with elected official issues. As such, this Chapter 1 should be eliminated because it has no impact, no effect, it has no jurisdiction, nothing related to the responsibilities in ordinance of the Personnel Committee. And I ask for a second, or just vote. The entire chapter, Chapter 1, which includes 101.1 and so on. Chapter 1 deals with elected officials. Which includes the standards of conduct for elected officials, which is as presented in the packet. Or if it deals with employees, keep the language that relates to employees, but eliminate anything that relates to elected officials, whatever that might be. I note that purpose and scope of 101.1 stands for conflicts of interest. But anyway, as I said, policy 101.2 is elected officials are expected to conduct themselves and so on. Unlawful directives, 101.3, 101.4, 101.5 is all dealing with elected officials. 101.6, discrimination, oppression, and favoritism. 101.7, unauthorized access, disclosure, or use. 101.8, conflicts of interest of elected officials. 101.9, ethical compliance documentation. And finally, 101.10, conduct and behavior. In essence, pretty much all of 101.
Well, Alderperson Arnold, isn't this the same policy that you brought forward to us and approved previously?
Yes, but since then, I have learned that this body cannot enforce it properly, cannot adjudicate it properly, cannot even review it properly because of biases, because of political positions. And so why do we even have it? And I believe that at the May 4th Personnel Committee meeting, special counsel indicated that it is very unique for a city of our type to have a policy of this nature. And so I say, since you've taken action to censor me, and I have complaints against other alders, and you're telling me that the lack of evidence, the lack of documentation in my situation has bearing, but the documentation, the evidence that I have presented related to the complaints against the alders has no standing, then that renders this policy moot. It has no effect because it is not going to be addressed properly. And so why don't we just get rid of it? Because it has no effect of any type. And so let's be generous with each other. I'll drop my complaints if you vote to eliminate this section of our policy manual. Then I'll drop my complaints because they will at that point have no bearing.
Well, I would be a bit confused. We did go over this policy quite extensively.
That's the history. That's the past.
And you were the chairman, and you thought it a fine. And even revised portions of it, as I recall. Several portions of that particular piece of our policy. I then find it curious that today, something that you personally were involved in establishing, you no longer feel what you did was correct.
May I respond?
Oh, of course you may respond.
Okay. Yes, When I was named chairman of the Personnel Committee, I took it my responsibility to put an action plan together. And I put a number of things on there that I thought the Personnel Committee needed to address. And one of them was to review every chapter of the municipal policy manual, because it had been adopted in March of 2024, shortly before I was elected to the city council. And so it was adopted at that point, but was also done perhaps without full review. So when I was in that position of chairing the committee, I decided that it was time to do that. So I believe it was June that we took this under consideration. I did an evaluation of chapter 1. We took chapter by chapter each meeting. And I made a number of recommendations. I don't have those recommendations with me. None of those recommendations were addressed or implemented or changed as a result of this. Then we consequently went through every other chapter, and every time I put together recommendations, suggestions on changes and things of that nature. This whole policy manual needs a lot of work. And I've had a conversation with City Attorney Draper, and he admits, even specifically, this Chapter 1 needs significant work, if not even elimination, because it's inconsistent with general practices of municipalities in the state of Wisconsin. As a consequence, that's why I raised my motion, because many things have happened since June of 2025. You may recall, one of the complaints I had occurred April 15th, 2025, and it was delayed and not addressed in a timely manner, which is beyond my comprehension. But then further actions took place. Decorum was not maintained in the city council chambers and in committee meetings. Civility was not maintained. And I happened to be the subject of those accusations or complaints or suggestions, whatever it was. So it continued. And the most egregious, perhaps, was the March 18th incident where Alder Ames filed a false police report against me. She provoked it, she aggravated it, she made it happen, and then she has the gall to say he hit me and then files a police report. Now, I find this to be absolutely egregious. It should not have happened. It should, anybody with proper civility, decorum would look at that. Anybody with common sense would look at that and say, well, okay, she provoked it, she made it happen, and then she took this action. Well, this body at our May 4th meeting dismissed those charges, that complaint. Are you kidding me? It was documented. It was evidence. It is. So if we're not going to properly take measures to address behavior by elected officials, then I say this chapter 101 has no effect. And let's just get rid of it, because then we can go on and we will live with Wisconsin statutes and our ordinance, which references Wisconsin statutes relative to ethical behavior of elected officials. There is language in our ordinance, and it essentially refers to state statutes dealing with ethical conduct of elected officials. That should be sufficient. And if at some point in the future we believe that there are specific types of decorum, civility, behavior that need to be addressed by elected officials, it should then be addressed in a proper manner. And it should be brought before, not the Personnel Committee, but the Common Council for discussion and review and perhaps action. And never should the city administrator be bringing grievances against elected officials unless the ordinance is changed, which clarifies that, or his job description has clarified that. There should be no city employee that brings a grievance of this nature. Now, there may be personal incidents that might take place, and perhaps that would be appropriate, but not the type of actions that have occurred in these complaints that go on here. So with that, I rest my case and say that this chapter has no validity. It should be removed, deleted, and I suspect that if this body recommends to the City Council, the City Council will take it up perhaps as early, well, maybe not as early as Monday or Tuesday evening, perhaps it will, perhaps it won't, but at the next city council meeting to then formally eliminate and delete this policy. Again, a policy is a guideline. We easily can remove. It is something that that should be removed. And so that's my point.
Thank you. If I understand it, you primarily want to remove it because of the grievances against you.
No. I don't believe you got the gist of what I was saying. What I was saying was that it has been proven by 2 complaints that were brought forward and action by this body that the validity of this policy has no bearing. It has, it becomes political, it becomes a tool for weaponization, and it should not exist. And that's the reason why. So, as I said, I'm happy to drop my complaints because if we eliminate this, this policy, then my complaints have no bearing because there's nothing to support them.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions. One is, if this were motioned and agreed to be deleted, would have to go to council for approval. And then based on that information, if it has to go to council for approval, would not the current standings and the current time frame that this whole process is taking place still remain intact? It would not be taken away because the council decided later on that that policy is not good. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
There's going to be a lot for you folks to unpack here, but what I think you said at the tail end.
Kyle, can you move your mic a little closer?
Yep.
Closer, when you're not coming over
What
Thank you.
Alderperson Boylan said at the end. Louder. Louder?
We're having problems hearing you out here. All of you.
Gotcha. Can you hear me now?
Excellent, thank you.
Good. All right. Alderperson Hoyland at the end of his comments mentioned that this committee would provide a recommendation to the council to strike this section from the policy manual. Under your ordinances, under section 2-49 sub 3, this body does not have the authority to strike from the policy manual. You have the authority to recommend striking from the manual. So if this body were to undertake a vote that approves a recommendation to strike from the manual, the body here has a couple of different options. You may continue to address the grievances as they currently are filed, or you may place them into a hold capacity while the council addresses the issue. I think that it's important from a legal standpoint that I address a few things that the motion here that you are dealing with needs to be very cautiously interpreted. Your chapter 1, as was first referenced in your policy manual, deals with a lot more than just you folks who are elected officials. As Alderperson Hoyland pointed out and the chairperson pointed out, it also references your standards of conduct that you have adopted for your employees. It has also adopted definitional guidelines for how certain policies throughout the manual are to be considered as it relates to specific positions within the organization, which can be found in Chapter 100, not in Chapter 101. And then you have the provisions of, obviously, Section 103 that deal with standing committee responsibilities as its own separate standalone area there. So as not to create a great deal of ambiguity for your employees that your city administrator will need to sort out using his powers under the ordinances and under his job description and under the general responsibilities that the administrator has to maintain day-to-day order. My suggestion to you folks is to very carefully consider the motion at hand and whether further tailoring of it would be more warranted so as to avoid some disruptive consequences. I also want to point out to you that it appears that the city has utilized a company called Lexipol for purposes of assisting in the development of its policies. Lexipol is a very well-regarded policy-making entity. They do work with municipal and public sector employers all over Wisconsin and all over the U.S. And the standards of conduct that they have delineated for your employees, at least through my quick review of them, without a detailed reading, appears to be generally consistent with what you would find for standards of conduct for municipal employees that might use Lexipol as a policy service. But if you were to strike the entirety of Chapter 1, there's a little bit of Pandora's box that you're opening by that. I'm confident your administrator could deal with that. But that would be something that the council would definitely want to seriously consider if that was the issue. But I suspect here the real problem is the concerns raised about Chapter 100, Section 101. And so the motion itself seemed to be about Chapter 1. So I just want to make sure that you folks are aware of the concern that I had from a legal standpoint. Yes?
Yes.
So I would like to amend the motion to recommend that policy 101, sections .1 through .10 be reviewed by the council for discussion as to changes or alterations.
By the council, not the committee.
Correct.
And as the motioner, I do not approve of that. And the reason I do that is because I think that we have a recommending capability. I would recommend that Chapter 1 that we strike, if that's the proper word, strike Chapter 101, Sections 1 through 10, and then recommend that to the City Council. And the City Council still has the ability to amend, revise, to do whatever. But I think recommend it would include all of those, and I think that would accomplish essentially what I'm trying to accomplish, which is the effect of striking most anything related to elected officials, not employees. So if it has something to do with employees, perhaps that can stay. If 101.3, where it says unlawful directives, elected officials should not knowingly direct action or inaction that if carried out would result in a violation of any law or city policy, that seems to be appropriate, because we should not be directing. That is the responsibility of the city administrator. However, most of the other things are related to conduct of elected officials. And if it's related to conduct, I believe that is the language that should be stricken. If that helps to clarify my intent.
Would you read the motion again?
Alder Hoyland objected to the recommendation of Alder Yeager and recommended striking 101 from the policy. Alder Yeager's amendment was to recommend policy 101.1 through 10 be reviewed by the council.
And I moved to strike all of 101. And then I believe Alder Yeager amended to recommend the City Council review 101 sections 1 through 10.
That's what I just said.
I didn't hear quite that right, but if that's the case.
What I would look at it as is there's a motion right now that if he's amending his motion, if that's permitted, to recommend that section 101.01 through .10 be stricken by the city council. The version of the verb. Yeah. But if, the key thing is recommend.
Yes.
Ken?
And Alder Yeager wanted to amend it to review rather than recommend. I did not accept the amendment.
Alderperson Yeager.
So, this, as has been mentioned, policy 101 has already been reviewed and approved by this committee within this past year. And so the next step would be to go to council, and I believe they reviewed and approved this recommendation as well, so that the policy manual review in completion with the entire manual was completed. So in my mind, anything that is brought up now either needs to be reviewed again, specifics by this committee, or this committee recommending that it goes straight to the council for review because we have already completed this process
Within the last year.
within the last year. Correct.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just because we have reviewed and made recommendations to the policy manual, and specifically this chapter in June of 2025, the committee still has the ability and authority to recommend a change in the policy manual. And that's the essence of my motion. It was to strike chapter 101, section 1 through 10, to recommend striking. So we have the authority to do that.
Thank you. Alderperson Ames.
I believe this really needs to go to council, because council is the one who makes the final decisions. And I think we are not allowing our other alderpersons to weigh in on this.
Alder, Madam Chair, we are. We're simply recommending. That's all we're doing. We're not taking action to strike it. We are taking action to recommend to this common council that this section be stricken. That's the motion.
All right, then I call the vote.
On which?
On his motion to strike policy 101,
Section
1 through 10.
To recommend striking.
To recommend
Yes.
striking.
To recommend to the council to strike section 101. And then the council would have the ability to address the issue. That's the effect of the motion.
So how does that, with all of the grievances and his fallback, are we done? Or is this?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I don't want anything written.
You folks get to decide that. You can decide as part of your, what remains your authority given to you by the city council under 101.10, whether you wish to continue considering the two remaining grievances or allow the council to address the issue of policy 101 and then revisit that at a subsequent meeting. That's within your authority, this body, to decide.
Yes.
So clarification on the language between striking and recommending review. Because I'm recommending just the council review 101, 1 through 10, and not recommending striking in my motion. So is there a difference between the two, or would both essentially end up doing the same thing?
The effect of the motions is very similar. A motion that simply suggests to the council to review the policy says to the council, we want you to review it. That's what the committee is saying. A motion to the council that the committee recommends striking section 1.101.01 through 0.10 has the effect of saying to the council, we recommend as a committee that you strike it. Of course, each of you retains your abilities when the council addresses the issue to decide maybe there are certain parts of section 101 that are important. As an example, one that you folks brought up was 101.3 involving directives being given essentially by elected officials. I presume that means to staff. Is that already addressed and subsumed within your policies and other places would be something that you would explore. If it's already adequately addressed within a chain of command structure, within a chain of command policy, then you might decide, yes, we don't need that. But that's going to be up to the council to decide, and the council may very well kick it back to this committee. Say, give us a full recommendation of what to strike. So there's lots of different ways that this could go.
Okay,
And you did call the question.
I did call the question. So let us get back to what the original motion was without the amendment. Do you want the amendment added? Okay.
I did not agree to the amendment.
I know. And with,
Yes. Yep. Correct.
Do you want me to read that?
yes,
Okay, so just to clarify, Alder Hoyland's motion was to recommend striking policy manual 101.1 through 10 to council. That's the one we're gonna be voting on. There is no second to this motion. Are we ready for a vote?
is there a second? There is no second, however, we will vote. All those in favor of striking, recommending striking 101.1 through 10.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No,
Motion failed.
the motion
Should I
The
reread
second one.
Alder Yeager's amendment?
failed. Yes. Thank you.
To recommend policy 101, sections 1 through 10 be reviewed by the council.
Be reviewed by the council. Is
Do we
everyone
have a
clear?
second?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Alderperson Ames, seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Motion carried.
Motion carries.
Back to the main motion.
Back to the main motion.
By Alder Hoyland to delete chapter 1 of the policy manual. There
I
it is.
removed
There's a
that
second.
motion.
Delete that one?
Yeah, because I revised it to recommend striking.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. We are on 2603.
And I believe my motion was July 1st. Well, I guess we didn't get a date on when the city council will review the chapter 1. We should have a date. You asked me to put a date on there. I think there should be a date. So on this motion, or this not adopted motion.
Oh, well then, Alderperson Yeager, did you want to put a date on the motion that you brought forward?
At the August council meeting.
The August council meeting.
Which one? There are two.
The first one.
August 10th.
August 10th. Okay.
I would suggest that there be a vote, that there be a motion to recommend that sections 101.0 be reviewed by the council on recommendation of this committee. No, but there's just
Okay. Do you want to bring it? would you like to make that motion?
I'd like to amend the motion to add the date of August 10th, 2026, the next council meeting for review.
All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
Yes. Alderperson Ames seconds.
Discussion?
Is there discussion?
Yes.
Oh,
I would like to see this
Wow.
reviewed
Yeah.
earlier than August 10th, because it is currently May 22nd. So that is, in a sense, almost 2 months. And I think that a more appropriate date would be either July 13th or 27th, because, it gives us a full month for plenty of research to determine whether or not any of the sections that might be controversial can be reviewed. It's not going to take that long to determine that. So I think that August 10th is too long of a distance, and we should be addressing it more. That's still current and not dispersed, and there are a lot of other business to come before the city council, so I think it would be helpful to have it early. I would ask that, I would move to amend to July 13th.
All right. Is there more discussion? Is there more discussion? Do we have a second to his amendment? No. All right. Even though there is no second, we will. There was first. There was not for the Senate. Okay, so we will vote on Alderperson Yeager's amendment to her motion that we review the policy no later than August 10th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
The motion carries. It will be August 10th. Now we can move on to discussion and action involving City of Lake Geneva Government Manual Policy 101, Section 101.10. Grievances referred to and under the authority of the Personnel Committee. Specific grievances, A 26-03.
I move to continue 26-03, 26-04, and to review 26-02 at a date after the August 10th City Council meeting, at which time potentially the City Council will have made a determination on whether to strike or not, or even amend Chapter 101, Section 1 through 10.
Is there a second?
Was that clear in my motion?
Very.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So he wants to bring mine back?
That is
That was
correct.
clear, yes.
Amen. Amen. Yes, definitely.
If you wish, bring all of them back, but definitely 2 should be included in 3 and 4. And if you want 1, 2, 3, 4, I would accept that revision to my motion.
Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion. Okay. Oh, yes, of course.
It was, the grievance was dismissed.
Yes,
I think you're going to need the agenda, not the agenda. They just don't want to read it, So.
yes, 2602 was in fact not on the agenda,
Correct.
and therefore,
So if I would amend my.
and it was dismissed.
with prejudice.
Yeah, you know what that means.
It was dismissed.
Otherwise, what is with prejudice?
In either case,
Madam Chair, you want to clarify what special counsel is suggesting to you? Or special
Yes.
counsel?
Yeah, you had mentioned that you'd be willing to amend your motion because 2602 is not on the agenda, I believe.
Well, my motion was to continue.
2603 and 2604.
Correct.
Yep, until the date after the council
Correct.
addresses this.
Correct.
Yep.
And I also am willing to have 2601 and 02 continued, or at least the actions that were commenced at the May 4th meeting to be included in any discussion that happens after August 10th or after the city council has taken action on chapter 101 through 10, 101 through 10, 1 through 10. Is that clear?
to me,
I understand what you're saying. You're essentially saying you want 2601 and 2602 to be reconsidered.
Correct.
Yep. Or the opportunity for them to be reconsidered.
Correct. In light of the action that's taken by the city council with regard to reviewing chapter 101, sections 1 through 10.
okay.
That, I would say, because 01 and 02, person 02 is not on the agenda. 01 is on the agenda. That one could be inclusive of the condition. 02 should not, because it's not on the agenda, and it was dismissed, which essentially, there's an argument that has deprived itself of jurisdiction. So, I think if the amendment is to consider 2601 at a later date, the question of whether after the action take the action to take that stands, unless it's later. So that's how I see the motions. I think we just need the motion structure.
I see.
Yeah. Alderperson Boylan, I know that we're trying to structure the motion in the proper way. The motion itself, and maybe we break it down into smaller bites, is a motion to continue 2603 and 2604 until a later date, after the council has the opportunity to review and make a determination on section 101 of the policy.
Also, I think I overheard you say
Yes.
we could add 26-01, and which would be resolution 26-RP1.
But it wouldn't be a continuance of 2601. 2601 has already been decided. So it would need to be a motion to consider that one at a later date.
Okay.
Yep. After the council has the opportunity to provide that. So I think we have two separate motions here.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'll leave it to you folks to sort out what you want to move.
Okay, very good. Well, then I will, upon suggestion or recommendation of special counsel, I will restate my motion to continue 26-03 and 26-04 until after the city council, common council has reviewed and taken action on chapter 101-1 through 10. And that number 3 be continued. Well, no, sorry, I'll do that separate motion.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, motion fails. Would you like to do another motion?
So we are not going to continue agenda 4A and B. Is that Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct.
We are going to address those today.
Yes.
And I'll discontinue any further action or any further motion related to continuation.
Thank you. Is there
So
a motion
I
on the
move
floor?
with regard to agenda item 4A, 26-03, I move to censure Alderwoman Cindy Yeager for misconduct as stated in complaint number 1 and complaint number 2 as presented.
Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion fails. Is there another motion?
I make a motion to drop, I make a motion to drop the grievances against Alderman Yeager from Alderman Hoyland.
Is there a second?
Wow.
I will second.
Of course.
Is there a discussion?
Yes, thank you. So my first complaint is on March 18th, following the candidate forum in which Mayor Krause and myself, Alderman Hoyland, and the candidate for mayor had completed our forum discussion and comments. And after Alderwoman Ames had confronted me at the front of the hall and aggressively provoked and incited the following action, I proceeded back toward the back part of Horticultural Hall. And by the time I reached the back, after greeting a number of people, the hall was mostly emptied. But I was standing there next to my friend Wade Taylor. Wade Taylor will confirm and provide witness testimony that Alder Yeager came up to me in an aggressive manner and got in my face and said, "You are a liar," or some words to that effect, essentially repeating what Alder Ames had said at the front. My friend Wade Taylor, who was my size, stepped between us and indicated to her, and I'll paraphrase because I don't remember the exact words, but "Get out of here." And that prevented Alder Yeager and me from having further confrontation. And Alder Yeager did then leave willingly. But she engaged in an intense and confrontational verbal exchange. Again, like I said, calling me a liar, stating that I should be ashamed. Her conduct was sufficiently aggressive, and a third-party attendee, Wade Taylor, who does not live in Lake Geneva and is not available today because he is working, intervened and physically positioned himself between us to prevent escalation. This conduct aligns with prior documented issues involving similar behavior and lack of corrective acknowledgement during earlier ethics discussions in 2025. Which leads me to complaint number 2. And this took place on April 15th, 2025, during a Finance, Licensing, and Regulation Committee meeting. That standing committee has now been dissolved. That incident during the April 15th, 25 meeting, specifically, Alder Yeager stated that I went over the line in asking directly a staff person to do work for me, and that it is against our code of conduct, and expressed that she was very upset with this conduct. Now, this incident is part of the video system that we have. It is documented, it is timestamped. I refer to this specifically, the video, the date, the time, the timestamp. We have documented evidence that this happened. She further asserted the request was a personal request rather than a council-related inquiry. Proper channels were not followed. The conduct was inappropriate and in violation of policy. These statements were made in open session without prior inquiry or verification of the underlying facts. in a pointed accusatory tone during a policy discussion when this took place. The communication, it doesn't matter what the factual context of it is, because it doesn't matter what the subject was. In fact, the subject was really unrelated. But I had contacted the parking manager for information that would assist in a review of that particular issue, because it was a parking-related issue. And I copied the city administrator. And the city administrator and the parking manager indicated that she had spoken with the city administrator and had been given authorization to respond to my questions. These were questions. These were not directing her to do something specifically. This is information gathering, which I believe city council members should have the ability to do. If we can't inquire among staff related to topics that we're dealing with from a policy standpoint, then we are really hampered in our ability to do our job. So this was clearly an effort for me to gather information so I could make important decisions related to the topic at hand. I cited the policy violations, Chapter 101.2, Standards of Conduct, 101.5, which is ethics, prohibits conduct including wrongful or improper use of authority for malicious purpose, willfulness, representation, or improper motive, and conduct that reflects reckless or unfounded accusations. And then 101.10 requires that council members maintain decorum in meetings, refrain from rude, critical, or disrespectful comments directed at fellow alderpersons, avoid conduct that undermines the integrity of council proceedings. Now, I am under no illusion that this body, this committee, is not objective. This committee is going to make decisions in their own self-interest. So I have no illusions as to what the outcomes of my complaints will be, but I want the media to understand that regardless of the results of the vote of this, these accusations are accurate, they're documented, they're evidentiary, and they should be stated clearly in whatever is reported afterwards. Because if this behavior is not a clear indication, and the behavior on March 18th, if this is not indicative of unethical misconduct and behavior, I don't know what is. And frankly, Alder Yeager's, my complaints against her are probably slightly less than Alder Ames. And you've already demonstrated that you will not take action against Alder Ames, when in fact it was even more egregious. So I present these for the record, and I think for the community to understand that these actions took place. There's no denying it because we have evidence. And if you decide to vote otherwise, you are derelict in duty.
Amen. Thank you, Alderperson Harland. Yes.
So in reference to what Alder Horland has commented on, I will refer to his comments at the last personnel meeting on May 4th. The grievances he has brought forward are purely subjective interpretations, and those are his words. We both have versions of what happened and witnesses to support our versions. Professional conduct must apply equally. If one is allowed to...
Quiet.
Equally.
If one is allowed to speak what they believe is the truth, then the other has the right to speak as well. I believe in the First Amendment safeguarding freedom of speech. In the second incident, as far as the transcript on April 15th, I am a firm believer in following process and procedures. Policy 101.10 states we should have no direct contact with city staff or direct them to do work for us without permission. The packet of materials that was given at the meeting in question did not supply the information concerning approval given from the city administrator for Alder Hoyland to request that information from a staff person. I made my comment based on this information. It shows in the transcript that I stated my comment was not personal, that it was nothing other than following process and procedure. I called that out at that point in time, and I also said that I would not have questioned this had the information in the packet been provided that showed proof that he had followed those processes and procedures. So I admitted at that meeting that my comment was incorrect and that I was simply following process and procedure that was noted in our code of conduct. So I personally feel that he has taken this out of context because it was not a personal attack. It was a process and procedure question. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderperson Yeager. Well, Evers. Is there further discussion? Okay, hearing none.
What's the motion itself?
Yes, would you read?
The motion by Ames was to drop the grievances, and it was seconded by Bowers.
Okay, could I have some clarification as to what the intent of the motion is? Did you mean dismiss?
Dismiss Alderman Hoyland's grievances against Alderman Yeager.
All right, then
So I
could
want to
we?
clarify, they're not
Could we have-
grievances, they're complaints.
Grievances?
They're not grievances, they're complaints.
I make a motion to drop this /grievance/complaints against Alderman Yeager brought on by Alderman Hoyland. To dismiss.
So, further discussion?
Is there further discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I've made claims, and I provided evidence, and I quoted, and I indicated there is video evidence that supports me. I will add that Administrator DeAngelis was sitting next to FLR Chair Ames during that meeting, and Mayor Krause was also sitting here in the chair next to, I believe, Comptroller Nazarsis. And so both of the city administrator and the mayor were present, and neither of them intervened. And I did indicate that I felt that their comments were inappropriate. And like I said, I have video evidence that this occurred. I was stating quotes specifically, so the comments from Alder Yeager that I don't agree with them. And so demonstrate to me why you would dismiss this. I fail to understand how you would dismiss this type of unethical behavior when there's documented evidence that it clearly is unethical behavior in both the March 18th, 2026 incident and the April 15th, 2025 incident. You have to demonstrably, to me, demonstrate that these things didn't happen when in fact I have documented evidence that they did. So you're going to move to dismiss with prejudice. And if that's the case, then, the people here And the people who will see this video afterwards, even though it's not an official video, they will see it, and it will be part of the record of this body. So please bear in mind what is about to happen.
Thank you, Alderperson Hoyland. Yes.
First, I would like to know what video you're referring to specifically. Was it at the forum, or was it the meeting video?
Specifically, the April 15, 2025 video in which FLR proceedings are video recorded.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, the evidence that he provided at the first time he was filing a complaint, he totally left off of the documented video evidence the comments that I referred to about making this a process and procedure question. I referred to the administrator and the mayor, and you did as well, to ask, were you given permission to do this? When the answer, and this is in the transcript on the video, the answer to that question was, yes, they gave you permission. At that point in time, I made the following statement. It's a statement of fact from the information included in the packet. No email included showed you had directly, or no email included that showed you had directly contacted the city administrator, mayor, or the parking manager. It was a note that she had received a request from you, and here's the answer. So therefore, my reply was based on code. It was nothing personal, nothing other than following process and procedure. Had she included the actual email that indicated both parties had given you permission to follow this process with the parking director, I would not have questioned this at all. This is in the transcript. It was not on there, so I had the right to question it. And that's all I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderperson Yeager.
And Madam Chair, my response is, I did not bring along my transcript. I actually have a transcript of that besides the video. So I can't respond to that at this point. So, but one thing I do know, and I'm going to restate it, I had questions for the parking manager that only the parking manager could answer. And so what I did is I reached out in an email, and in the emails I had the parking manager, and I had the CC to the city administrator because I felt it was important that the city administrator be included in this. And then the parking manager and the city administrator, according to the parking manager, discussed my request, and the city administrator gave her authorization to proceed with answering my questions, or at least gathering the information. And then she responded to me with this information. And that's the information I used at the FLR committee meeting relative to this subject. So that's the timeline, if you will, or the manner in which I went through this. I certainly understand that as an alderman, I do not direct staff to take action on my part. I would not go to the parking manager, for instance, and say, I think you need to discipline one of your parking enforcement people. I wouldn't do that. I mean, that's a clear separation of policy, oversight, and administrative authority. I wouldn't do that. But asking for information, as I said, is something that if we can't ask for information, if we can't get it, particularly when I have included the city administrator in that request and received authorization to provide that information, and then to be told in this committee to be, in essence, talked down to and tried to be put in place. And that's the essence of what was being done. It was trying to minimize my credibility, to then accuse me of action that seemed to be inappropriate. Well, what should have happened is before making those comments, and this is what I would do, I'd verify first. Did I actually violate the policy? But you don't make those accusations without documentation, without evidence, got to have evidence before we make those statements. That's why everything I've done is to, if I've got a complaint, or if you want to call it a grievance, I document it. I put my work ethic into it, and I provide the information. And I did that a year ago when we had those discussions about the April 15th information. I put it in a written form. I sent it almost immediately after the April 15th event. It was ignored for 6 weeks. Nobody responded to me. So in June, I followed up and I said, what are we going to do? And at that time, finally, city administrator responded, and we did have one-on-one meetings with each, Alder Ames and Alder Yeager. I agreed not to make these public out of respect and dignity of the situation. So we had individual meetings with these people. I did not bring it to the personnel committee. I did not make it public. I respected the process that we should be dealing with it separately. And we did, I thought. But the behavior did not end. It continued. And frankly, I do believe that the mayor has responsibility for maintaining decorum. And I have found that that's not the case at many times. So is the mayor implicit in this behavior? Well, of course, because it is the duty of the mayor as the chair of the common council, or any other body in which a chair is in charge. They are to maintain decorum, whether it's of the audience or of the members. And I don't believe that decorum and civility has been maintained. And this is a prime example. And you've already dismissed what Alder Ames did. And now we're looking at what Alder Yeager has done on 2 occasions specifically. Again, where I can document evidence, where I have clarification, I've got video documentation, reference to ethical conduct that has been violated in Chapter 101, Sections 1 through 10. It's obvious that this body does not want to deal with them. So, as I said before, perhaps we ought to just get rid of it, and then we don't have to spend the time and the money dealing with these issues, because then leave it up to the chair of every body here. Let them maintain decorum. Let them take responsibility, accountability for the behavior that goes on within those bodies. So I rest my case that if you don't see, colleagues, you do not see that ethical conduct was not followed, okay, we'll see how that turns out.
Thank you, Alderperson Highland. I believe that there is a motion and a second. Are we ready for the vote? Is there further discussion? Then I call the vote. All those in favor, do you need the motion read again, just for clarification? Okay.
Motion by Ames to dismiss the grievances / complaints against Alder Yeager by Alder Hoyland, seconded by Powers.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Thank you. The motion passes. The grievances / complaints will be dismissed. Okay. Moving on to subsection 26-04. Is there a motion?
As the complainant, I move to censure.
Is there a second to this motion? Hearing none, the motion fails. Moving forward, is there another motion? Alderperson Yeager.
I'd like to make a motion to dismiss the complaints against Mayor Krause, 2604.
Is there a second?
I second.
Alderperson Ames seconds. Is there discussion?
I would offer a I believe, Alder Yeager to respond if she wants to her motion. If she chooses not to, then I will proceed.
Thank you. Yes, I believe that the actions that were presented by Alder Hoyland against Mayor Krause are a stretch of what actually happened during those dates and times. Taking a picture of someone holding a telephone in the car after they have gone off the road in ice and saying they're texting while driving is quite a stretch. I know that anyone that falls off the road or goes off the road, the first thing you're going to do is pull your phone out and call for assistance. So again, the comments that Alder Hoyland has made against the mayor are a stretch, and I do not agree with any of the comments that he has listed as complaints against the mayor.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Alderperson Hoyland.
Thank you. You know, the reason why I brought these complaints, or if you want to call them grievances, forward is because of the way I was treated. And I looked at the fact that, city administrator filed a grievance against me for supposedly going into a public facility, of which I have been a member of the Public Works Committee for 2 years. I've been in this space many times. I've walked freely through there. It is a public space. And taking video that was never used. I've never even seen the video. You have no documentation that it was ever seen or used. And so here was a picture of Mayor Krause on his campaign website with him standing right here with the U.S. flag behind him. I don't know who took the picture. Can't verify that. Was it a city employee? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it was a professional photographer. So you have, two different situations where we're in public facilities. So that's one. I have another picture of, and it was actually taken at exactly the same day that I was also doing video shoots for my campaign video, and I included it in my as an appendix. It shows Mayor Krause with members of the superintendent's student advisory group, or we used to call it a student council, I'm not sure what it's called now, standing outside the city hall. And I can only presume that, and it indicated that there was going to be a tour of City Hall. Again, is this a campaign event? Well,